What's good, everybody? Happy Monday evening. We are back at it with another game week. It's about time, man. The bye weeks are over. Thank you, Lord. Do me a favor, hit that like button. If you have not subscribed, go ahead and do that for us. Click that subscribe button, hit the bell notification. Whenever we go live, you will receive a notification on whatever device you prefer. All right, I know y'all see the title. A lot going on right now in college football with this coaching stuff. Brian Hartline's name keeps getting brought up, a lot of buzz. We're going to address it. We're going to talk about it. But also remember, when you send your super chats, helps to go towards the pay it forward, which is our military and our first responders. We love looking out for them because they always look out for us. We're going to get right to it. Nevada Buck, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Lots of stuff going on. Um, Understand that Brian Hartline may actually be calling plays for Penn State this weekend against Ohio State at the stadium, which
That's
is
funny.
which is kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like that you think about I mean, he could do it. It'd be like, did you ever see Bash at the Beach with Hulk Hogan when he did the heel turn when he went from from Hulk Hogan to Hollywood Hogan and he joined Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in the ring and they ganged up on Macho Man Randy Savage. That could be what Brian Hartline does in the middle of the game. He pulls off his Ohio State hoodie at halftime and puts on like a Penn State hat and runs over the thing and leads them to victory, man. So wow, we got a lot to deal with this weekend, man. It's going to be terrible, B. But yeah. Other than that, nothing going on.
Yeah, it's heating up. People are getting a little nervous, reaching out. I mean, Penn State people are reaching out to me saying, "Hey, this is serious," and all that stuff. I'm just like, okay, we're gonna see. I mean, we're gonna talk about the ins and outs of a decision. Let's just entertain. If Hartline decided to make a move, what would that mean? How would that look? What would the future look like and all that? But I mean, honestly, and I was saying this backstage, I think the bigger picture thing that's interesting is I can't remember a time when there's been this many openings, big time openings in the middle of a season than now. Can you, Nevada?
In the middle of the season, no. Yeah, this is a little unprecedented. I think teams are trying to get ahead of things, because you remember you've got an early signing day. Signing day used to be in February, now it's into December. So, like, if you want to have your coach lined up and ready to go as soon as your season's over, so that you can try to salvage your recruiting class. You know what I'm saying? And so
Right.
I think for a lot of these guys, that's what they're trying to do, and that's part of the consideration in terms of who's available and who's not. So let's just kind of address the elephant in the room regarding Heartline. Let me give you all the intel that I know. I've
Yeah.
got pretty good sources on helping technician. I had a great nugget on it today. I've talked to HT a couple times. I've talked to my people in the agent community. Here's the situation. The backdrop is this: Penn State fans are the most delusional fan base in the world when it comes to this stuff. Okay. Like, if you remember, anybody who's old enough to remember their last coaching search, they had Urban Meyer going to Penn State.
True.
Yeah, they had him, they had secret reports from the realtor who was helping him pick out houses, and he was going there, and that was their grand slam. Like that was the big thing, and that was a big story. That story had legs. It was insiders, and Penn State Recruiting Now was reporting it. I mean, it was just all over the internet. It was the big thing, and there was zero truth to it. Like, Urban Meyer never, ever, ever had any interest in that job. So that's kind of the backdrop that you have in this. So when you hear all this noise regarding Penn State, you have to put it in the context of they have been so spectacularly wrong on this stuff
Mm.
before. Don't think where there's smoke, there necessarily is fire. That's item number one. Item number two is Brian Hartline. What does Brian Hartline want to do? What are Brian Hartline's intentions? What is Brian Hartline's career path? Where's Brian Hartline at with his family life? There's lots of considerations here. Brian's 38 years old right now. Brian's sum total of experience as an offensive coordinator is 7 games. He has demonstrated that he was in the right place at the right time, got the wide receiver recruiting job, and we have to remember the guy before him had been recruited of the year twice, brought in Olave, brought in Garrett Wilson, so it's not like we haven't had good wide receivers before. Brian's just taken it to another level. Brian's been on an incredible run in terms of wide receiver, but Ohio State's never really had trouble attracting wide receiver talent, to the Buckeyes, and Brian's taken advantage of that, and like I said, really taking it to previously unforeseen levels. But Brian ultimately wants to sit in the big chair at Ohio State. He wants to be the head coach of the Ohio State University. So the question for him is, what's the path to get him to be the head coach at the Ohio State? And there used to be a popular consensus that you have to leave, you have to go somewhere else, prove yourself, kind of the Urban Meyer thing when he was a GA and then he left and went to Bowling Green and turned them around, and then went to Utah and turned them around and had an undefeated season, then went to Florida and won 2 national championships, and then came to Ohio State and was the head coach. Now you look at Ryan Day. Go back and look at Ryan Day's, coaching experience before he got the head coaching job at Ohio State. He was basically like Chip Kelly's quarterback coach valet in the NFL for a couple of teams,
Yeah.
and then he was the OC for Ohio State for 2 years. That was it. That was literally his experience. And then he got the head coaching job at Ohio State, and he's been spectacularly successful. And now Ryan's, the ripe old age of 45, kind of, a super, super young guy from a coaching perspective, and kind of going through this right now. And how long is Ryan Day going to be here? Ryan Day's stated objective is to win multiple national championships and see his kids be older and get out of school. And so that puts his time horizon in the 4 to 6 year thing, I think, maybe 5 to 7 on the optimistic side, but that's where he's going to go. So if if and when Ryan Day moves on, who is going to be the most likely chalky pick to be the next head coach at Ohio State? It'd be Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator. So you don't officially name him the coach in waiting or the coach thing, but you groom the guy to take over the job for you, which inevitably is going to be open. You say Brian waited 7 years. Say Brian was like the most, I'm going to wait 7 years. I'm going to learn the craft. He'd be 45, which is really young, like
Yeah.
really, really young. And being a head coach is so much more than X's and O's. I mean, it is dealing with administration, it's dealing with academic progress, it's dealing with fundraising, it's dealing with booster. I mean, it is a job, 7 times more complicated than being a position coach or being an offensive coordinator. And you've got to, it takes a while to learn the job. And I think what's going on right now is, Brian Hartline does not mind the downside to having his name mentioned in reference to these jobs is that potentially it could affect recruiting. That's the only downside. The positive side is it enables you to get a raise. It enables you to get an extension, whatever you want on your contract, an existing thing. Having other people want you certainly leads you to that place right now. So he's enjoying the attention, he's enjoying what's going on. But the idea that Brian's going to leave to go there, because here's the risk to him. You say, well, what's the downside? What's the downside?
Right.
The upside of Brian going, say, take it. Let's play along and go with the Penn State job. Would he be getting? Is he be getting? Now he's a head coach. Okay, that's good. He's going to get a little bit more money, but you have to understand when you have millions of Brian played in the NFL, so Brian's got millions of dollars, and Brian's making millions of dollars right now in a relatively low stress type of situation. His wife's from Columbus, their family's he's from here, and he's kind of in the rocking chair right now in terms of making money, in terms of enjoying his life, in terms of learning his trade. You throw all that away going to be the head coach at Penn State. And as I said to you pre-show, James Franklin was in the national semifinal last year with
Yeah.
Penn State, and he's fired this year. So where are the expectations for Penn State right now? What are the expectations for Penn State are we're going to win a national championship. You can put us over the hump. You can beat Ohio State. You can beat Georgia. You can win the national champ. And if you don't do that, oh, they'll turn on you. Look what happened to Jim Knowles this year. They'll turn on you pretty quick. And I think it's kind of like John Wick, where he's being given an impossible task. I think he's been given an impossible task to go there, recruit at the level that you would need, just because Brian Hartline's going to come there doesn't mean every top player is going to be coming there or whatever it might be. I mean, Brian has basically been recruiting the South Florida Express for the
Right.
past 6 years. That's what he does. He gets all the South Florida Express players. You know, the reason that South Florida Express players come is because the best quarterbacks come to Ohio State. The reason the best quarterbacks come to Ohio State is because Ryan Day's there to develop the best quarterbacks, unlike Penn State, where you had Drew Aller and other spectacular failures go there, and so you can't attract top talent. So for Brian, he would literally be public enemy number one if he went there, because the expectation from Penn State would be you bring Ohio State staff with you, whether it be strength and conditioning staff, assistant coaches, whatever it might be. You bring players off the current roster, and you bring recruits. And so that would paint him as public enemy number one. Now, the latest fancy thing is from the Penn State. There's literally Penn State people that are saying Brian Hartline is going to leave Ohio State in the middle of the season
Right.
and come to Penn State to help save the recruiting class and save whatever it is, which again, I can't even express to you how fantastically crazy I've learned in life never to say never, but that would be the first time in the history of ever that something like that had happened. Like ever. Ever, 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 ever. That somebody left in the middle of I mean, it was bad enough when Tony Alford left in spring football. Can you
Right.
imagine leave the offensive coordinator leaves the team in the middle of the season
On
to
another
go
natty run.
on another natty run to go there? I mean, I just can't express to you how crazy an idea that is. And so when Penn State guys are throwing that around, I'm just like, please. So summarize. It's Brian's irrational. And you notice how never in this whole thing have I mentioned love of Ohio State, the brotherhood, loyalty, the code, and none of that. This is just about what's common sense in terms of Brian and Brian's career path. Where does Brian want to end up? He doesn't want to end up just anywhere. He wants to be the head coach at Ohio State. Does making a move like this well, let me put it a different way. If Ryan Day had left Ohio State and gone to say head coach at Missouri or Texas A&M or something like that, do you think that would that have enhanced his ability to be the head coach at Ohio State, or do you think it would have decreased his chances to be the head coach at Ohio State?
I would say probably decreased.
Significantly decreased. Like, because now you got to go there and you got to win. You got to go there and you got to win. I mean, if Ryan Day goes to Missouri and goes 8-4, he ain't getting the job at Ohio State. The 8-4 at Missouri might be a great performance.
Exactly.
So it's just if you want to get in the big chair, you follow the guy that's been in the big chair. Ryan Day got the job in exactly the same path that he's grooming Brian Hartline to do it. Brian Hartline wants to be the next head coach at Ohio State. This is his path to do it. It's a state, not out of loyalty, not out of love, not out of tough love or love conquers all, but because when you have millions and millions and millions of dollars, the difference between making 3 million and 6 million it doesn't change anything for you. It doesn't change anything for it. Like he already has a ton of money. And when you have a ton of money, at some point money stops becoming the determining factor, and it's certainly not going to be the determining factor of Brian Hartline. That was a long answer, a lot of information that I threw out there, but that's what I got.
Long but thorough. And I think you're right. I think that's great perspective. I mean, it's not like Brian Hartline, came from a broke family and never had any money, or, oh, this money. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And real quick, Ryan Day, he what's the saying? He walked so Brian Hartline could run. I mean, so the path and blueprint is there now for him. You know what I'm saying? And because Ryan Day, he also was the offensive coordinator at Temple and Boston College for in a 3-year span. So Brian Hartline has been the OC for 7 games. Like, just on the flip side, as much as I love Brian Hartline, and I think he has a trajectory to be really good, I just don't think that would be a great hire for Penn State. He has no experience. At least Ryan Day was a coordinator at 2 schools and at Ohio State for some years, and was the quarterback coach in the NFL with Chip Kelly. You know what I'm saying? So he had something more than just 7 games of being an OC. So I think the blueprint is set. I think you going to Penn State is risking a ton for you to fail with those expectations and you not having the experience. I agree. I mean, Stick around, make your bread, enjoy your family here in Columbus, and just be patient and do well here. I think that is the wise path. You know what I'm saying? And that's not even about me just wanting to keep Brian Hartline. Sure, I want to keep him, but just being objective, stepping back. I think that is the best course of action, Nevada. And I mean, that's just how I feel about it for real. And go ahead and respond. I was going to show this tweet about Urban Meyer. You mentioned him earlier, but go ahead.
Well, no, Brian's a smart guy. His agent's very smart, very sharp guys in terms of doing it. And you know, this is one of those things where for Brian, it's about not screwing it up because he's on the rocket ship to whatever land you want to call it. He's on the rocket ship to success land,
Yeah.
and literally this would be the only losing play he could make. The only losing play he could make would be go somewhere before he's 100% ready to do it and fail, because then it's over. You know what I'm saying? Then
Yeah.
you ain't getting the job at Ohio State. You ain't getting the head coaching job. Yeah, you can be a coordinator, but you're already a coordinator. So like,
Right.
why risk the biscuit in terms of doing it? And Brian, there's a part of Brian that knows that, and that would feel like he was fraudulent. We can fool other people, but you can't fool yourself. And he's going to go, man, if I go there, I'm putting myself out because now I'm all alone. I don't have the Ohio State. I mean, he's been successful, but how much of it is the Ohio State brand? How much of it is Brian Day? How much of it is the culture? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's a big part of it because it's not like his predecessor wasn't spectacularly successful, recruiting wide receivers as well. So it's not like this isn't just a Brian Hartline joint that, wow, we've never gotten wide receivers before Brian Hartline came here and now we're getting them. So, you know, I think for Brian, the information that I have is that he's enjoying this and he's having fun with this. But the idea that he's interviewed 3 times, there's private planes flying him back and forth, he's leaving the team before the season. Like I said, if I'm wrong about that one, then this will be the first time in the history of ever that something like this has happened. And I don't even like to go into hypotheticals like this because it would paint Brian in not a flattering light, and I don't think it's fair to do that because he hasn't done anything other than be successful, and so I don't want to paint him with bad hypotheticals.
No, I hear you. I mean, but your point is well made. And just circling back to Urban Meyer, it's funny. One of the big reasons why some of their fans were saying Urban Meyer's coming is because apparently he was in Central PA, and they didn't know why, and it had to be for the Penn State job. Well, here's a tweet. Senator Dave McCormick, great conversation over breakfast this morning with my friend and all-time great, Coach Urban Meyer. We talked about leadership, teamwork, and serving something bigger than yourself. Now, could Urban Meyer have snuck over to Happy Valley to interview and wax eloquent about why he should be the coach? I guess that's possible. But this is what some of the Penn State fans were going crazy over on the podcast and reels, Nevada, but with Urban Meyer.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, could that have been subterfuge and he was there? Could he have been giving them advice on the hire? Could he be? I mean, there's a million different things, or it could just be no reason whatsoever. He could have just been, he's actively involved in politics and talks to a lot of people on both sides of the aisle. So, I mean, could it have been that? Yeah, yeah. You just never know. But you know, I've learned from talking to the agents that you get a pretty good handle on it. That's when we broke the Urban Meyer thing to Ohio State. That came from the agent community. That was 100%. They knew what was going on. And when I have not talked to to one agent who said to me that they believe that Brian Hartline is a serious candidate for any of these big jobs. I mean, you got to remember he was linked to the West Virginia job, and West Virginia ended up going with Brady Hoke. You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, Brian Hartline, with his 7 glorious games of offensive coordination, the greatest coordination anybody's ever seen, he's going to go from not getting the West Virginia job to stepping into the Penn State job or the Texas job or the Florida job or the Florida State or the LSU job. I mean, like, come on. At some point, rationality's got to be, and being a head coach, man, I am telling you, I do not envy the guy. I've always thought that the college football head coaching job was an impossible job. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was before NIL. That was before the transfer portal. That was before, literally, you think about your team. Your team is, it's like putting together an NFL team, except for every player on your team is a free agent at all times. There's no contracts. There's no nothing they can leave at any time. I mean, imagine trying to build a team that way, trying to build culture, trying to build continuity, trying to build for the future. I mean, it's darn near impossible. I don't know how these guys do it. They, whatever amount of money they get paid, and it's king's ransoms and more than most people will make in 17 lifetimes. I'm telling you, it's not enough because it's an incredibly complicated job. It involves so much more than X's and O's, and not every great coordinator is a great head coach, and
Yeah.
that's been shown time and time and time again. So we haven't even talked about the risk of what if Brian Hartline's just not a very good head coach, which that is a non-zero probability. I mean, it's way higher than zero, and it may not be 100, but I'm telling you, it's not zero either. So there's a chance that he's not even a good head coach. He's 38 years old. He's very inexperienced in terms of doing it, and this is me talking just kind of like you. This isn't about, oh, I'm so nervous. I don't want Brian Hartline to leave. I think Brian Hartline leaving would be the dumbest thing and I didn't feel that way when Jim Knowles left. Hey, separations happen. When Chip Kelly left, like, hey, Chip, go get your money in Las Vegas or whatever. But Brian Hartline leaving right now for what I know that he wants to do, it would be absolute lunacy. And Brian's not a crazy person, and he's not being advised by crazy people. So there you have it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, from Penn State standpoint, I know some people are saying they're panicking. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, but listen, they could just be doing their due diligence to line up their guys. Hartline could be a serious person on their list, but not the top guy. And so, I just, like I said, I wouldn't get it. It wouldn't make sense on either side. I agree with that, like flat out. And especially not leaving during the season. I mean, Hartline, he could if he stays, and I know I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we've been entertaining this. We are looking at a realistic shot to be in it to win 3 straight natties. I mean, that's real. I know we got to get through this season, but that's a realistic thing. He could do that as a coordinator and then eventually stay here and become the Ohio State coach. He would be a legend. And like you said, the risk of him leaving and becoming hated and just fall from grace would be crazy. So to me, it's a no-brainer that, entertain the offer, let your agent do work and all that other stuff. But going to Penn State would be crazy to me. I think that's pretty simple, when you kind of put it like that. And then also I see the chat, Urban Meyer, honestly, and you tell me real quick just to kind of pivot to Urban. And actually, I see the super chats starting to pile up. So yeah, some good stuff. So we'll get into in a moment, y'all. But Nevada, I think Urban is done. I think he's done. I know that was kind of, cautious to say that a few years ago, but I think he's done, man. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I literally heard it from his own mouth to my ears. He's done. And so, and you just have to understand where he's at in his life right now. I think that the Jacksonville thing presented some interesting things for him. The Texas thing, when Texas came after him hard, remember when Texas,
Oh
that was a
yeah,
big deal. Urban Meyer to Texas, and we had it where and part of that, part of the reason why he said no to that, there's lots of reasons why he said no, but part of the reason why he said no was because it would destroy his legacy at Ohio State. Because
yeah,
if he left and then unretired and went to Texas, and he wants to be known as a Buckeye, and that's part of the calculus for Brian Hartline right now. You know what I'm saying? To pivot back to Hartline, Hartline, if Hartline leaves now to go to that job, there's no coming back. You can't come back from that. It's like it's over. You've gone over. You are now public enemy number one, and so everything that you've ever dreamed of, everything you've literally flushed by doing that. And you're no longer, I mean, would he, do you think people would cheer for Brian Hartline if he left to become the Penn State head coach?
heck no.
I mean, and now let me throw it a different way. What if he left in the middle of the season?
extra heck no.
What if he took players or took staff? I mean, it's just like, you go through this thing and you're like, there's just no way. And that was part of the calculus for Urban. But Urban right now has got a really comfortable life. We've talked about, money not being a factor when you've got so much money. And he doesn't want to get into it. He doesn't want to get into the rat race, and he doesn't want to deal with NIL. I'm telling you, he had it easy by comparison to Ryan Day. And as soon as that NIL stuff started, look at Saban. It drove Saban out of coaching. That's the reason Saban's not coaching. It's because he didn't want to deal with the NIL stuff. The NIL stuff was so uncomfortable for him, and so just it offended his sensibilities to have guys coming in constantly renegotiating,
Yeah.
and didn't want to deal with it. So I think, yeah, I ultimately think that's what's going to drive Ryan Day out of college coaching. I think Ryan Day will move on to a cushy NFL job where you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff, and because I wouldn't want to deal with it. The idea that everybody's a free agent, and if you're yelling at a kid at practice, he could transfer and leave. Like, man, that's not that's not a good situation to be in for anyone. And look, I think that's what ultimately, those are the ties that bond, Brian Hartline to Ohio State. Like I said, it's not the I don't even think it's the idea of winning multiple national championships. It's just there is never really a good time to leave Ohio State, but there would be a bad time. And a bad time would be
Yeah.
to try to go take a job that you're really not ready for, that you're really not equipped to be. I mean, if somebody said that Brian Hartline got an offer to be an NFL offensive coordinator or something like that, then you might look at it and go, "Wow, okay, that's interesting." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Penn State head coach, I
Right.
mean, no, 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 no. So that's where I'm at.
No, I agree. And lastly, I'll just say Brian Hartline, I can't think of a more beloved Buckeye than Brian Hartline. There's some up there, but he's among them. And so you talk about killing that would kill that. Does he really want to do that? I don't think he does. So I won't belabor the point about that. But before we get to these super chats, these great super chats that are popping up, I wanted to show something because we talked about these all these openings, man. And Brian Kelly, first of all, Penn State, just go get your boy Brian Kelly. Go get Brian Kelly. But I was going to say, me and my chat, my guys, I always talk about DeJuan, Mike, Deontay, Carlos.
Oh,
We
come on,
said,
this is the greatest video in the history of videos. And there is no better video than this. You understand that.
listen, we said the writing was on the wall for the LSU, him getting fired at LSU when he was caught twerking with recruits. This was so trash. When we
Oh my
saw
God.
this, we was like,
Oh,
oh yeah, it's a wrap. And the fake Bayou accent, oh
oh
yeah,
my God.
it
Oh
was
my
bad.
gosh.
It was bad.
That's so awful. And my eyes are bleeding just watching that right now because it's
I'll
so
turn it
bad.
off.
Oh
I'll turn
my
it
God.
off.
Thank you.
But yeah,
Thank you.
that right
Thank you.
there,
Oof.
that was it for Brian Kelly. But go get him, Penn State. That's your guy right there, Brian Kelly. All right.
Go
All
go
right,
get
let's dive.
rule go get Rule from Nebraska. That's who you're gonna end up. That's who you're gonna end up with. That's who they want. That's the right level for Penn State.
Yeah, I
Go get
agree.
him, and that's a good hire. Penn State connection, the whole thing. Go get him. Go
Yeah,
blue,
they
go
they
white.
they want to do better than that, but no, that's you. That's your
Yeah,
wheelhouse. I agree.
yeah, exactly.
All right, Joshua Dillon. Thanks for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thanks for the 4.99. Losing Heartline will suck, but Day is more important. We will find it in as good or better replacement. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Day is more important. And listen, I'm not saying we can't go out and get a better OC. I don't want to lose Heartline either. We can definitely get a great or better OC recruiter, but to me, it's like Heartline is our guy. Like that's our guy. And so if I had it my way, I wouldn't want to lose him. And I would, if I had it my way, OC, multiple national titles, stay here, assume the role of head coach when Ryan Day bangs out. That's the storybook ending for me. And Nevada, I think, has pretty much articulated that as well. But if it did come to a situation where he banged out, I'm very confident Ryan Day could get a really good coordinator to come here and take over. Hopefully, I don't know if they would have the chops of recruiting that he has, but I'm sure there's someone out there in Nevada.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, we'll look at Ryan Day's last two hires. Last two hires, Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator, Matt Patricia as defensive coordinator. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, if and when Brian Hartline decided to move on for whatever reason or whatever set of circumstances, is there any doubt in your mind that he wouldn't go out and get a great offensive coordinator? There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I think he would swing for the fences and get. I mean, he convinced Chip Kelly to leave a Big Ten coaching job to become the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. So he would go out and do it. And look, the Ohio State machine keeps rolling. Would it be a blow if something like that happened? Sure. But that's not the reason why I don't think it's a good idea. As we talked about before, this isn't hopium on my part that Brian Hartline doesn't leave, because the Ohio State brand is way bigger than any one person. It's way bigger than Ryan Day. When
Yeah.
Ryan Day leaving is going to be that's going to be a bad day for lack of a bad pun there. But
Yeah.
we'll survive. We'll go on, and the machine will keep going. And hope they make a good hire, and they don't make a stupid hire. They don't go out and just hire somebody because they're an ex Buckeye. To save, don't go hire Marcus Freeman. Don't go hire Luke Fickle. Go get it like a real go get somebody who can really coach and really do it, because it's a hard job. And that's why I think you got to be super selective, because if you make the wrong hire, you can end up in the abyss. And look at so many, we've talked about this a million times, how many formerly proud programs have been sent to the cornfield and just been out
Yeah.
there for years. Nebraska's still in the cornfield, and they used to be like the cream de la crop of college football. So, you know, you just be careful about that. And that's why, like, for a program like Penn State to even consider hiring a guy who's never been a head coach before, yeah, guys with 7 games of offensive coordinating experience, that yeah, you might catch lightning in a bottle, but man, there's a high thing that this thing completely flames out and you guys just spiral downward. And um, I mean, I just don't even understand how it makes sense for either party, to be honest with you.
It doesn't. And you're right. And too many fans, Ohio State fans, take for granted that we are a machine and that we've kept rolling through all the changes, all the whatever. And some of these programs haven't. And so, yeah, we want to keep being smart. But that goes to this next super chat from Joshua Dillon. Thanks again for the 499. We also should consider that Ryan Day may never leave Ohio State and may retire as the head coach, especially if he wins national titles, Saban 2.0. Again, that's my dream scenario. I think that's a realistic dream scenario. I think that's worth putting money on. And so I think that's possible too. Maybe Ryan Day is cool with just riding out in the sunset and retiring after a long stint, as the coach. We'll see. I mean, what do you think, Nevada? What are the odds? You think the odds are greater for him to do that or to accomplish, winning multiple natties and then leaving to the NFL?
I think that's probably the most likely, but again, you never know. But I think being the head coach at Ohio State, you have to do it in like dog years. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it's a hard job, man. Like being 10 years at Ohio State or 15 years at Ohio State is like being like 30 years somewhere else, man. It can wear you down, and I just think that's true. And being a college coach in general is so incredibly hard compared to the NFL. The NFL, you go 11-6 or whatever it is, you lose 6 games in a regular season, and they're having parades for you. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like that. You're in the playoff, and everybody's loving you and buying you dinner, and you know popping bottles of champagne. Out here at Ohio State, we lose 1 game, and it's like the end of days. So at some point Ryan's going to want to he's going to want a different challenge, and I hope it's after 3 or 4 national championships here at Ohio State, and he's left as the greatest of all time here, and he wants to go on and win a Super Bowl and challenge himself at the next level. And at that point, we'll wish him well, and root on the next head coach. But um, yeah, I think I'm happy for every year we have Ryan, because I just feel very fortunate that he's still our coach, and I'm not going to ever take that for granted.
Agreed. All right. What a thrill. Thanks for the 1999. I don't think Brian would stab his mentor in the back to go to a conference rival. He's much better off continuing to learn from Ryan, and he will have input on who replaces him when he moves and will want to leave us in a good spot. I agree. I mean, you can be surprised, but I just don't think. I think like Nevada nailed it. He's not a dumb. He's smart, and he has smart people around him. I just can't see that either. And so the Penn State. Listen, I do believe Penn State is serious about looking at Hartline. I just don't buy that Hartline is serious about leaving mid-season to take the job or to take the job in general. And so I know all these rumors and stuff are floating out there. That's why we're addressing it. Again, people hit me up all day, Penn State fans and Ohio State fans, concerned. And so we're hitting it head on, but it just doesn't make sense. And that's not what we're hearing as well. Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything that lends any credence to it, and I agree. I mean, this would be a big betrayal. I mean, this would be, this would be turning your back on your guys, stabbing them in the back, stabbing I mean, it would be a big heel turn, and I just don't think, if your ultimate objective is to be in the chair at Ohio State, why you think that the path to doing that is become the most hated person for the Ohio State? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the only thing, from then it would be, well, maybe Brian Hartline doesn't care about being the head coach at Ohio State. Well, I know that's not true. I mean, I know that's not his dream scenario of all dreams is to be the head coach at Ohio State. And that's what he wants. And I think he'll follow the path that gets him there. And I think in this pace, it's staying, learning, and patience. And it's not like we've asked him to be so patient. He's been an offensive coordinator for 7 games.
Right.
Like, yeah, like come on. If it had been 7 years, maybe we're like, okay, Brian, you've been calling plays for 7 years. Maybe I get it. You want to go stretch your wing. He's been doing it for 7 games. Let's pump the brakes a little. And frankly, the 7 games haven't been have these been the smoothest 7 games of offensive coordination or red zone execution that you've ever seen in your life of following Ohio State football, or has it been a little spotty?
Spotty.
Yeah. So like, I mean, Brian clearly is a work in progress. So let's let him get better.
For sure. Good points. D Sonny, thanks for the 4.99. Do you think that big time coaches like Urban, Day, and Saban love the easy 40-point spread games or the prime time top five matchups more? Um, to me, I think they're all high level competitors. I think I'm going to lean towards them liking the top five matchups, um, just because of the competitive nature. Now, the 40-point spread games, Ryan Day, he's a master at that. At just beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, unranked teams, and everybody can't do that. But that's my answer, Nevada. What do you think about this question?
Yeah, I think it's clearly the top 5 game. I mean, the other ones, like you do them because you have to do them. I mean, look, you coach even at your level, you coach. And, so there's some teams when you coach and your team's going to beat them by 8 touchdowns,
Right.
and you roll the ball out there and you go out there and you get the fruit roll ups and the orange slices for the kids at halftime, and you're
Yeah.
doing what I'm saying. But you're not really that into the game because you just know it's going to be a bloodbath. And then there's other games against the arch rival team, and you're jacked for that. You know what I'm saying? Like you're ready to play that one, and you got that nervous tension in your stomach. And I think these guys are all competitors, so I think it's clearly the top 5 matchups. Matching best on best, big crowds, college game day, national television. I think those guys live for that stuff, so I think it's clearly the top 5 matchups.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty solid. All right. So, Charles Parker, thanks for the 109. Concerned with Maddie P in one of these openings? I am not. I am not. I could be completely wrong. But Nevada, I actually think Maddie P, he's loving Columbus. I mean, he said it, and I don't think it's just coach speak. I really, truly believe he loves where he's landed since his stint at Detroit. It's a restart. He's beloved here. He's doing great here. His resources are here. To give this up and his family enjoying this experience, to go take on a head coaching job, to increase his chances of kind of failing and falling out of this situation he's in. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. What you think, Nevada?
I think when he leaves here, it will be back to the NFL. I don't think it'll be to another college job. That's the information that I've got on Matt Patricia. So I don't think he's a viable candidate for any of these jobs. But you know, as I say, you never say never. I don't have perfect. I have much better information on Heartland than I do on Patricia. But I've everything that I've always heard from Patricia's people has been when he leaves, it'd be back to the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Like this was like the best college job that he could do. This was like, this was for him to kind of refine his love of coaching, which he has. He's kind of re-engaged, refound his love of coaching. And I think he's going to be here for for a few seasons. But I think when he leaves, it'll be back to the NFL. But that's just my personal opinion.
I agree. That makes more sense to me. All right, D Sunny, thanks for the 499. If a young OC took a head coaching job, do they usually hire an older mentor to help them learn how to run a program? I don't know because I can't think of a whole lot of young OCs getting hired. Now with Ryan Day, he had Urban Meyer too. He wasn't on staff after he took over, but he had him. He still has him now. So that's kind of my point of reference. What's your take on that, Nevada, or what's your experience? Do you have anything to point to kind of answer this?
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln Riley did that. I mean, I think for sure you can hire old hands, old head coaches to be in one of these advisory, quality control assistant, senior associate, whatever it is to kind of help you through it. But the reality is, there's nothing quite like being in the chair, you know what I'm saying? And if
Yeah.
you haven't really kind of mastered it, and the challenge for some of the old heads on this right now is they didn't live through the NIL era. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So there's very few people that have relevant experience in terms of helping you navigate that, because how long has the portal and you know what I'm saying, really been around? Like 3 years, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, it's kind of a new experience, and there's really, not a lot of people that can have relevant experience. But yeah, I would expect for sure any young OC that would do that they'd go out and try to hire, people that had been there before and try to help advise them in terms of doing it. But it's not easy to replicate that kind of an experience, and it's not easy. Look, it's not easy to win in college football. It's just not.
Yeah.
We take it for granted at Ohio State because we're in such a special circumstance where we're more talented than you know and we're super more talented than every team that we play. And there's probably only a couple of 2-3 losable games every year on your schedule, you know what I'm saying? And that
Yeah.
puts you kind of there. You go somewhere else and that becomes 5 or 6 games, and all of a sudden you lose 3 or 4, and man, it can get ugly quickly. And I think, like I said, we take it for granted at Ohio State because we win and we made it look easy, but it ain't easy. We just made it look that way.
At all. And that's what I want fans to remember. Don't take it for granted. We just spoiled. We can't take it for granted, man. Like it's we've seen so many programs just drop like flies, taking it for granted. Jeff Rittenhouse, thanks for the 5. Hartline stays put. When Day leaves, OSU admin would never overlook his loyalty to give head coach to anyone else. Fair. Yeah, I mean, I think Hartline could be a really, really good head coach here at Ohio State. I mean, he has it all, and he'll have it all with that experience by that time. And to me, it just makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? So I agree. I agree. Stay put, Brian. Stay put.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you always try to bet on the rational man, syndrome, and it would be irrational for Ohio State to go any place other than Brian Hartline if was here and was successful and had experience and had been mentoring at Ryan's knee. And much like Urban kind of picked his successor, that'd be who Ryan Day would be picking. Ryan Day would be picking Brian Hartline to be his
Yeah.
successor. You know what I'm saying? So he'd hand the whistle to him in terms of doing it. So like the path there for him, you know what I'm saying? And there's really nobody else in the organization that could really be that guy. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be Larry Johnson. It's not going to be, OG Tim. It's not going to be. I mean, James Ordonez may have aspirations, but
Yeah.
he'd have to be a coordinator for a long time first. Matt Patricia said, I don't, I think he's going to go to the NFL. He's not going to be around. So, for Brian, like he's the logical play. He'd be an overwhelming favorite to get that job. And let's just say they pulled the Montreal screw job on him, and he was here for 7 years and we won multiple national championships, and then Ohio State gave the job to somebody else, right? Well, what would Brian do? Brian would then go become the head coach at Notre Dame or LSU or Florida State or Penn State, wherever he went. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not like oh, they're going to leave Brian out in the cold, and and all these good. There'll never be another job that'll be open for Brian Hartline. He'll be 45 years old. He's 38 right now. He's
Right.
38, so he's so young. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to be impatient because he's not like he's working for minimum wage right now. He's working for $2.5 million a year, and
Yeah.
surely they get a bump because of all this noise.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, it makes the most sense. That's the path. That's what I want. Day, run off a few more natties, Hartline, step on in. Recruiting is still dope. Program is still dope. He knows the program. He knows the rivalry. He knows the culture. More natties. That's the ticket right there. That's it. Let's just do it. Back off Penn State. Now, with all these other programs, just as we close the show, I will say I'm very intrigued to see where the chips fall with Penn State, LSU, Florida. Don't forget about UCLA. Are they going to hire within? Whatever. It's going to be very interesting to see where all this falls. But in the meantime, us Buckeyes will have our eyes on the prize, which is, first of all, knocking off a plucky Penn State team. We're going to get into this game and our thoughts on it throughout the week. But they're going to come in here, guns blazing. This is their Super Bowl, and we'll be ready. But we are eyeing back-to-back. And there's no bones about that. That's not a secret. The players and coaches, that's what they want. And so in the midst of all this chaos, we got our eyes on the prize, Nevada. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think Ohio State's been able to do a good job of tuning out the noise up until now. Ryan's really good at it in terms of trying to lock guys down into the bunker mentality, and it'll be interesting to see how Brian Hartline addresses these rumors, though. That's going to be interesting because again, the only downside to perpetuating this is the effect on does it provide a distraction to the team? Does it instill doubt in any of your commits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Because the upside to him. I mean, think about him his agent's got to be salivating. His agent's got to be sitting there going, "Oh man, another article on Brian Hartline being wanted by LSU or Brian Hartline being wanted by Penn State."
Right.
Um, how easy does that make his calls with Ohio State about, "Hey, by the way, you might want to up my client and renew him and give me a raise, and I look like super agent. I look like Arn Tellem or whomever." I mean, I mean, it's so yeah, it'll be very interesting because he's going to get asked the question, and he's going to be up there, and I know that the Ohio State media is not very sharp, but one of those fat guys has got to ask the question of, "Hey, Brian, you've been linked to a lot of jobs. What do you think?" And it's going to be very interesting to hear, what the answer is and what the body language is behind it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. That'll be great theater.
Yeah, for sure. Because the press conference is tomorrow, Ryan Day. And then, of course, throughout the week, certain position groups are made available. We'll see if Hartline and the receivers are made available. That's going to be very curious because anti-distractions, Ryan Day ain't having it. So we'll see. I'm a press conference boy. I'm paying attention. I'm looking. I watch all the pressers. So I'm going to be looking to see if they allow him to come up there because, yes, they are absolutely going to ask him. And so we'll see. Very, very curious. But anyway, it's Penn State week. Listen, I want to beat the brakes off of them. I don't care. Our team is going to take them seriously. They're going to try to come in here with nose and just salvage their awful season. We ain't having it. Ryan Day ain't having it. And we're going to cover this game more specifically throughout the week about the matchup and whatnot. But definitely wanted to hit this Heartline stuff head on. Listen, Buckeye Scoop family, appreciate y'all per usual. Greatest chat in the land. Buckeye Nation, love y'all, and we will see y'all tomorrow. Go Bucks and peace.